Have you been looking to get into lights out automation but found the whole process a little bit intimidating? What's up, guys? Ian Sandusky from Lakewood Machine Tool back here again for Practical Machinist. And today on Shop Talk, we're going to be diving into exactly that predicament. But before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications below to make sure you never miss a video. Let's get into it. Okay guys, so today on Shop Talk, we're going to be going through something that a lot of us have been probably looking at. If you're in a situation like I am right now, where labor is getting harder and harder to come by, the talent pool has shrunk. We have to do the same amount, if not more work, with less people, despite trying to hire and train people up. And that solution that we've been looking at is automation. Automation is a very broad category when it comes to CNC machining and manufacturing. You know, it can be something as simple as a bar puller on your lathe, all the way up to fully robotic cells. But because it's so broad, it can feel very, very intimidating for myself especially. As a lot of you guys know, we do a lot of high mix, low quantity stuff here, as well as some higher quantity, high volume stuff. But when it comes to automation, traditionally in my head, it was mostly reserved for manufacturers who make a lot of the same parts. So you set up a cell for, 1,000 of a part that you run once a week or once a month. You set it up and you let it go. This doesn't always sound so good for a job shop like myself, where we may be doing 20 parts or we may be doing 50 parts and we're switching over all the time. It sounds difficult. Fortunately today, we're gonna be joined by two special guests. One is Greg from Alicat. He is a guy who runs a shop and he has recently gotten into automation, specifically lights out automation. And what lights out automation is, for those of you guys who don't know, it is essentially you set things up, they call it lights out. So you can walk over, turn out the light, walk out the door, and that is going to keep running all on its own without any input from you. It's a very powerful tool, and it's something that a lot of us wish we could get into. So we're gonna get to talk to him right now to see how it worked for him and his company and some of the steps he had to take to get into it. After that, we're gonna be joined by Chris from Methods Machine. He is the guy who basically helped Greg get set up with this. Very, very good resource on automation. They set up cells for tons of companies across North America. So it's something we're gonna try to dive into and get the real lowdown on, because it's not what we all thought it was after I kind of learned from a bit of this conversation. But let's get into that. Let's go talk to them and let's see what we can find out. Say hello, Greg.
Hello, how's it going?
Good, good. Thank you very much for joining us today. Tell us a little bit about your shop. Tell us about Alicat Scientific.
So Alicat Scientific we are a company that builds mass flow meters and pressure controllers. So we're our own independent company with a machine shop right indoors. So we can engineer, facilitate everything in shop mostly. We do outsource some stuff, but most of our meat and potatoes are done in the shop. Just a growing company that's been, excelling in machining each and every year. We just keep adding and adding more, and just looking for, how can we keep spindles going all the time?
And to touch on that, we're here to talk about automation, which I think you're about to get into. Now, you guys, as far as I know, just got into putting in automation onto your floor.
Yes, very much so. Yeah. So we had an issue of, keeping them going without hiring everyone to stay here all night long. People like the overtime, but, they start falling asleep at a certain time. So we definitely got into the search of robotics, adding that, that arm that can just keep loading the machine, let the operator actually focus on the other parts of it, keeping the, machine being able to run that 24 hours stretch is what we're looking for all the time. We can change it around, but shoot for that 24-hour runtime. And then you're, ready, parts are done the next day.
So essentially you guys had the problem of having too much work, requiring too much production, and not the number of bodies that know what they're doing in order to fill it. Am I kind of getting that correct?
Yeah, and it was also the big adding of floor space was another thing of just we couldn't just keep cramming in big horizontal machines. It was, let's figure out how can we use the space that we have. We only have 5,000 square feet. We've got 20 CNC machines in it with a giant cleaner. So a lot of these things were on skates for a while, moving around, just trying to squeeze everything in.
Now, there's a lot of options out there when it comes to putting in automation when you're looking at lights out machining. What kind of systems were you looking at, and which one did you end up implementing?
So there was a few that we started off with a UR, just an arm next to a lathe, just loading slugs because we didn't have room for a bar feeder. So we would just sit there, kind of work with that at first, and then understood that's, and kind of saw the beginnings of that. And then for like our sonic cleaner, we had we used it as hand load. Then we started bought one with a 3-tier robot that could go stations. And so we saw that, being able to automate that stuff. And then it really became into looking into what CNC machine would be able to, we could work with and just start programming. So we were looking at mostly what we were familiar with, robo drills. And so we got one, like just a standard one, just a little eco version. So we're like, well, we have the methods had the E plus, which is a full tray system with an arm on it. And, it looked, daunting thinking that a robot, you got to teach it, but it was just as simple as the UR, teach a location, let it do the grid and pick up and go.
And what would you say was the biggest change or adaptation in your shop, coming from a place that doesn't have a lot of automation to switching to a place that has a lot of automation? What was the biggest change or adaptation that had to happen at your shop to make this work? Because I'm sure it's not just plug and play.
So it was a lot of looking ahead of like, what do you need to make this? Because we switch a lot of jobs a lot with our automation. Yeah. Like we said, we always want 24 hours. So anything after the 24 hours, you'd be ready for the next job. So it was really making it modular with our systems. So getting all the trays set up, get all that, so we can put any size blank in and fit any size part inside of it. And that was the biggest adaptation.
Is essentially because you're trying to minimize downtime. If you now create downtime, you're not really saving any time. So I imagine that was a bit of a struggle, but now I'm sure you've got that set up.
Yeah, it's really like we can always see something ahead. And, the whole point was getting the robot so it could keep running. You didn't want to be the one in the way, or then making an abundance of, like, we have parts that, our bread and butter, we're making all the time, but we've been, inventory is getting so big on those. Hey, let's get these smaller jobs knocked out for these customers and stuff like that. So
now, as a guy who has done this for a bit now, I definitely, as someone who has not been very familiar with automation, I have some misconceptions. I'm sure you had some misconceptions or, hesitancy about it as well. What are some things that you kind of walked in there with that were proven wrong? And what were some that maybe were proven right?
Well, the biggest thing that got me was I was thinking it was just going to be one job. Like, oh, you have to just sit there and you only make this one part. But then when you're sitting there like, well, shoot, that part was done, nonstop. Nobody was had to be there. You had to start thinking ahead of, hey, you can do a run of 20 with this because then someone's available as long as you've got the systems in place of teaching. Hey, it's really easy to teach a robot just to go pick this part up, put in this vise, rather than, hey, I got to figure out another setup, do this. It's easier just to teach the robot to grab it, put it in, than actually teach someone how to fixture up something. it's just that much quicker. Even that's why I say we shoot for 24 hours and then we're already looking for something else to do almost. So it's not just that thing of running, 5 weeks straight of one thing. It's constant turnarounds, which are really easy to work with.
Which I know is a very big, like when it comes to automation in my shop, we do a lot of job shop stuff. So, I'm always saying, I don't have a 5,000 part run of something. Is it worth it? And you're saying it absolutely is.
Oh yeah, especially. It's so simple, just teach and go. And, it's just as easy, you spend all the time programming and fixturings and do all of that. Well, what's teaching a robot? That only takes maybe 10, 15 minutes. if you've got the look ahead of like how your grippers are going to be and stuff. So
what is the biggest benefit you've had from implementing this? I know it's probably going to say, no downtime or constant running, but are there any other benefits that you've really kind of been surprised by in putting the system in place?
The biggest benefit is probably just being able to take on all those other jobs. Like when a big order comes in, we've had some massive orders coming in this year where they're just our biggest of the years and all that type of stuff for our company's sales teams been kicking it and just doing everything that they can. And we're no longer have to be that small company where can't get that job done. The other guy gets it. So it's definitely just keeps you moving and going. Like we started off the year with, no robotics. Now we have 5 of them.
Wow.
So that's one of those things of just keeping those orders moving.
So you've clearly had a ton of success with this. What would you say to other people out there right now who are hesitant to start implementing automation, who maybe have some reservations? What would you say to them?
I would say if you've got a CNC and all that type of stuff, there's nothing going to hurt to having that employee being right there ready to go when you just need to get that job done. It's just having that tool, that opportunity to take that job on and get it done quicker with a little bit of extra time, which you're going to be there anyways, doing all the stress of, making sure this run comes out correctly. Just have that employee that you have your meat robots and you have your actual robot. You have that actual robot do the job for that guy so he can go do something else.
Oh, it makes a lot of sense. So shortly here, we're going to be talking to Chris from Methods Machine. Can you tell us a little bit about what it was like onboarding with them to get involved in automation?
Yeah, so we've dealt with Methods and Chris for a couple of years now. We've bought multiple horizontals through them, and then their support grew. And it was really one of those push forwards. I think we've been talking automation for like a couple of years now. And then it was finally at that time when, hey, let's jump into it. And then just their system and support of getting machines here, making sure like they're there on the fly to help us out as much as they can, whether it's, with all the supply lines and stuff like that. We, had some issues of, their stuff, but, they're right on top of it, pushing their guys as much as they can. And they know we're, needing to get the work out right away. When that big order comes in, that's part of your timeline. So I don't want to be sitting here all day, all night running a machine when I have someone else do it for me. Yeah.
So thank you very much for joining us today and sharing your experience. Where can we find you and Alicat online?
So Alicat, we're just Alicat Scientific. Me, I can be reached from my email, which is gharris@alicat.com. That's probably the best way of getting a hold of me. And that's where we are.
Thank you very much for joining us today.
Hey, thank you, Ian.
Well, now we're back again. I'm here with Chris from Methods Machine. He is the guy that helped out Greg from Alicat. Chris, thank you very much for joining us.
Hi, Ian. Good to be here.
Now, you are the man when it comes to automation over there at Methods.
Well, I'm one of them. I mean, we've got quite a few salespeople that are quite good at selling automation. I just happen to come across a few really good opportunities.
Now, speaking of opportunities, when it comes to automation, what is the most common issue you see out there that people are trying to solve? Would you say someone like Alicat and Greg there are a pretty common example of the problems people are trying to solve via automation?
Overwhelmingly, when I talk to people, it's labor. It's either a scarcity of skilled labor or, the labor that they have isn't really reliable. So a lot of the companies that I come across, they've got that night shift, and for some reason, all the problems happen on the night shift. And you don't get that with robots.
And would you say that other companies too are not only trying to replace people, but just, improve productivity without having to bring more people in? Is that kind of fair to say? Like, you're not trying to eliminate jobs, it's more augmenting what people can do.
You're augmenting what people can do. So we talk about automation, and just about all of this automation is not fully automated. It's an assist from people. So, I would say the hidden benefit that most companies don't realize until after they've implemented their first bit of automation is the productivity improvement. And, I talked with Greg, and Alicat did have expectations of a significant increase, but the increase in throughput that they actually got was much more than they were anticipating. So, these just, and it was to the point where their financial people noticed.
Oh, wow.
And their financial people came to me and said, look, we need more of these. We got to get them in a hurry.
And speaking of a company like Alicat, if that's the most common issue they're trying to solve, kind of branching out from there, what else would you consider to be the ideal company that's looking to put this in? My shop here, it's a lot of low volume, high mix. What kind of companies really are the ideal for the kind of automation that you guys are dealing with right now?
Well, the automation, especially the kind that Alicat has implemented, it's really great for companies that have a large volume of work, not necessarily, and it can be low volume, high mix, but constant flow of jobs coming through the shop. So if you've got a steady flow of work and you're having trouble keeping up with it, then automation is definitely the right choice for you.
And to kind of pull back a little bit further, as I'm the same, where I'm going to tell every shop out there, hey, listen, I can do your work for you. Is there any kind of scenario out there where you may honestly think, you know what, this shop's just not ready for automation, or maybe this kind of work is just not really suited towards what we have going on right now? Have you come across scenarios like that?
Absolutely. So typically companies that have unstable workflow, they get a job and they're really busy and then they're slow and then they're busy and then they're slow. Automation normally is not a good fit for those type of companies. There are exceptions to that when they're dealing with things like very dirty or dangerous environmental type of things, and a robot can actually save them from liabilities. Mm-hmm. So there's always an exception to the rule, but most likely I would steer these companies that don't have a consistent flow of work to rethink the automation path.
And just to drill down on one thing you said there, which is really interesting, which I hadn't considered. When you're talking dirty and dangerous jobs, I didn't even think of that for putting automation in. Are you seeing a lot of shops right now? What kind of jobs are you seeing, under that umbrella getting pushed automation?
There are some companies that deal with they're machining highly toxic materials that mostly in the plastics realm. There's dust and debris coming off of them that very hazardous to touch, to breathe, and putting a robot into that situation. If you've got, and again, you have to have a good amount of work, but you put a robot in a dangerous situation, and no one's losing a hand, no one's getting lung cancer. It's just a robot doing it.
That's a really interesting application for that. And I think a lot of companies out there, especially, dealing with graphite milling or G10, stuff where it is very toxic to the lungs. That's a really interesting application for this. So I think people are going to look into it for that for sure. So Chris, tell us a little bit about the kind of automation stuff you guys have going on at Methods right now.
Well, right now we've got several different machines that are robot fed. We've got a brand new line that we've added to our Nakamuras. It's a robo job. We've got, of course, the Plus E that Alicat has, and that's a good machine if you just want to load blanks. But if you've got some custom fixturing that you need to do, we've also got a Plus K machine, and that Plus K machine actually uses individual clamping systems. So the robot's actually loading something like a fifth axis clamp or something like that into whatever implementation is in there. Normally it's a 5-axis machine. So it loads in, automatically clamps, and it's all pre-fixtured, ready to go.
Well, thank you very much for joining us today. Where can we find you and Methods online?
Well, methodsmachine.com is a good place to go. We've got a fantastic team here. We're nationwide. So there are a lot of people like myself. I'm not the guy for automation, but if you wanted to reach me, it's C. Campbell, CAMPBELL at methodsmachine.com.
Excellent. Thank you very much for joining us. You have a great day.
Thank you, Ian. You too.
So there you have it, guys. Thank you very much to Greg and Chris for joining us today. Very interesting conversation, in my opinion. Automation is something I've been looking to get into for a long time, but as I said, it can be very intimidating. The way they phrase this makes it sound like it's probably not such a huge barrier to entry as I thought, especially when we're talking about a job shop. That was something I was really concerned about. You know, this always sounds like volume work to me, but you heard Greg himself. They do high mix, low volume stuff all the time, and it works out well. So this is something I'm definitely going to be looking into. I would like to know in the comments below, have you set up automation at your shop? What were some of the big hurdles that you had to cross to get it going? Because I feel like this is a conversation that a lot of people are having right now, and you know, with the labor shortage and all that, we're all looking for ways to help our guys do more without burning them out. So if you've done this before, please let us know in the comments below and let us know how you did it. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure you turn on notifications, like, and subscribe below to make sure you never miss a video. You take care.